Well, I think the hardest part is the simplest thing, but it's still the most difficult for us to do, and that's the old talk to each other. Effective communication. Nowadays, we're so busy going, going, going that we don't even talk to our kids about what they're doing online. We don't, as long as
Mhm.
they're quiet and they're lost somewhere and it gives us a second to just break. And we think that because they're in our homes or because they're next to us or they're over in the next room, we think that they're safe. And so we don't recognize what they're accessing. And our children are not going to come to us typically and say, "Hey, mom," or "Hey, dad, I have a question about this," or "I saw this. What do you think about this?" And so, as parents or even just stewards of children, because, everybody is not necessarily a parent, but everybody interacts with children. So, whether you're an aunt or an uncle or a grandma or a coach or an instructor or a teacher or you name it, if you are dealing with children, you have the opportunity to talk to them about what they are consuming, about how they're thinking, about how it's informing not just their thoughts, but their feelings, how it's shaping the scope of the world. And so it may be just as simple as when you're driving in the car, asking your kid, "Hey, what's your favorite game? I know that you play online. Tell me about the game. What do you like about it? Who do you play with? Look at how much time they're spending." And listen, when I tell you, I understand what it means to be at least socially connected, but not engaged in social media. Because, like I said, growing up just on the cusp of all of this, I didn't really devour it. But my husband, when I tell you he is a gamer to the point that Christian, I kid you not, each of my children, we had to battle over names, okay? So each of my children, I have been able to name them their first names. My husband, unfortunately for me, has named them their middle names, and all of my children have gamer names. So I have a Link, I have an Ikora, I have Sonic, I have Sega. Like it just goes on and on, okay? So I mean he's a die-hard to the fullest gamer, okay? So having to talk to the kids about what it is that they like, what their relationships are with people. And here's something that's very interesting, especially how not just COVID has changed things, but just how technology has changed for the younger generations, the way that they interact. Most of their friends are online. Most of their friends are not their classmates anymore. I mean, for example, my 12-year-old gets up in the middle of the night sometimes, and even as a therapist, I have to kind of measure that to go, is it okay that he's setting his alarm to lose sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning because he wants to play Roblox with a friend who lives in London and they're 4 or 5 hours ahead? Should I be worried about that? How long should they be able to spend building these worlds? And when they're online for 2 hours, should I now pull them away? And what is their feeling about being pulled into the real world? And how do you find the balance? And I think it's very interesting because as researchers, because I do research too, as researchers, we can't prove or disprove anything. We can only find data that supports or refutes some of the perspectives or some of the hypotheses or the questions that we're asking. And I think that the real answer is that none of us really have a singular answer about how we see the role of technology now or how we
Mhm.
move forward. And so, what I can tell you is, especially during this COVID period, that technology has been life saving for children. Not just because it's allowed them to stay interconnected to their friends and family, but it's allowed them to continue to go to school. For many who are, homeschooled or virtually learning, even now, many students are doing that. We have seen profound benefits, especially in communities of color where kids have felt minoritized or stigmatized or unsafe in their schools. And so we're seeing a rise of the number of students who will continue to use technology in order to learn. We've seen parents who have decided, listen, I don't want to do brick and mortar school now. I can take my kids across the country or across the world to show them the things that they've been learning. And we can use technology to incorporate that learning. I have a student. who is they're a client. I don't want to give away too much information, but their parents are able to travel. They have means that allow them to travel. And so they have spent this last year literally traveling the world to look at some of the most beautiful places that the student will learn about before they get there, to learn basic things about culture and the museums and the historic monuments. And then they actually get to go and living, breathing, see these things. And so some people are figuring out how to leverage technology as a hybrid, as an accent or an enhancement to what they're doing in the everyday world. And then I've met people and I've been fascinated by the conversation of, well, what if this is all just a simulation? And they tell me, well, how do you know for sure, Spirit, that we're actually human beings having this tangible thing and this is not a metaverse within a metaverse? And I personally am not that far yet. I touch myself and I go, well, my senses, if they program this, then they've done a really good job with like the scenery around this place. But I think that is even funny, and as I've seen some movies that kind of have those suggestions, there was a movie where there was a guy, he was blue shirt guy. I can't even think of the movie, but my kids were watching it and they were like, "Mom, how do you know we're not all blue shirt guy?" Where he was like a background character in this game, right? And so I was like, well, here's the blue shirt. If I am, just know that I love you and I'm going to do as best I can with you. And then my character is hardwired to do this. So this is what it is. Right. So I don't think that we know definitively, and I don't think that there is a singular answer definitively. But what I tell parents to use as a driving measure is your child thriving in the way that their lives are set up now? Do
Mhm.
you see them moving